Alrighty, good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the BBC, the Bordweall Broadcasting Company. Our guest tonight, with me hosting, obviously Renegade and Noz. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here as a guest this time, not producing for the first time in 2 years. This is going to be interesting, and I might actually enjoy the show a little more and not be angry as much. So,
I will actually say it's
Thank you.
not the first time in 2 years, it's the second time, because
Oh,
Alex,
yes.
who is our current producer tonight, actually produced a really nice show last week as well. So thank you, Alex, for the work that you're putting in the background there and giving Noslim a little bit of slack. And I think that's the first time I've seen him smile on the BBC.
I know, it's weird. It's so weird, but it's still factual in that this is the first time I am a guest without producing live. So
There
that
you
is still
That's
an
what
accurate.
you were trying to say, right?
Yeah, I'm just said it with a bunch of hillbilly and y'all didn't get it.
There you go. So what we are going to discuss tonight is we're going to discuss the parkour video that Snipe Hunter released this past Friday. And we are going to do that by kind of like playing the video, showing snippets of the video, then pausing it and commenting about what we've seen in the video and what our kind of like reactions to each kind of like segment of the video are. And Alex does not know ahead of time where we're going to tell him, Alex, stop. We want to comment about that bit. So he'll have to kind of like play catch up on that. So without further ado, Alex, let's go ahead and launch the video and start watching that.
We're really gonna test him today. Like this
We
is his
are
viewing
indeed.
test.
So I don't know. Do we have? Is there audio on the video, or am I talking?
There is audio on the video. I think he has it muted because it's mostly just
Good.
Snipe talking.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
want to comment.
Exactly. So we can comment as this is going on. So kind of like, at the moment, this is kind of like, for me, standard stuff. Again, Snipe Hunter mentions, don't be put off by the low poly graphics. We are kind of like somewhat privileged to be able to get this kind of like, insider looks at, literally the game in development. And it's not always pretty kind of thing, and not everything is polished and everything like that. And I actually, having followed quite a number of games in pre-launch, I appreciate this. Some
Being
people
test
kind of
beds
like
is not
complain.
a thing you usually get to do.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like, I think he screws up here and does like a little
Oh yeah,
swimming
he's swimming.
animation. Yeah, but so here I think we get to see the slide.
Yeah, this is like the run and you slide under, which so to me, like this whole thing, I was just super excited to see movement mechanics because that's like if the movements of a character doesn't feel smooth, I don't want to play the game. There's some games where it's just so janky, like hitboxes don't work or it feels like you're not actually where you are. But this looked I liked how smooth it looked. And it looked correctly paced because some games are really quickly paced and some games like your movement is really slow.
This bit here on the zip line I kind of like because you have to kind of like decide when to jump off, kind of like.
I
And
never even
I
saw
think
that.
yeah, because I'm fairly sure that when the game comes out, if you stay on until you get to the end and you hit that post, you're going to take. This is something for me that was interesting as well, and is the actual balance mechanics in here. You see where you've got there's like the three axes there. I don't know if you guys saw them, the red, green, and the yellow, that you have to kind of like balance. I've not seen that in a game before. Normally you just have to kind of like use your WASD keys to walk along it.
Yeah.
And you don't typically see the axis for sure,
Yes.
right? We're seeing it
You
because
won't
we're in
in the game.
development here, but
Exactly.
but
Can
I
we
agree. That's
pause
not
for a
something
moment
you
there,
see very
Alex?
Yeah, we're gonna
often.
keep pausing. Alex. We're gonna keep talking
but
about the thing.
but what we can say here is that it like Renegade's saying, it looks very fluid. It feels natural. And to me, that's one of the biggest things when I'm controlling a character. I want it to feel not janky, not pokey, not, I want it to feel fluid, right? And I want it to feel good. And I want the characters' movements to be responsive to my keys and not be over exaggerated and not be underrepresented. But I mean, just very early on, it looks like it's very, very fluid, very smooth, and coming along pretty good.
Yeah, and the whole thing with the balance one, I don't really recall a lot of balance. Like, I know that there are parkour games, but I didn't really consider COE as a parkour game, but seeing this showed me that I don't really think I know of a lot of games that have that kind of like balance mechanic. It's more like just don't fall off. And I thought that was really cool because, like, I know I'm a klutz and I know when I balance on stuff, that's exactly what I do. I look like I'm going to teeter off of it. I don't look like I've just walked off a ledge or something like that.
Well, I kind of I look at these things, I guess, a little bit differently. I mean, I'm in my early 60s. I'm disabled. I'm bedridden, and I kind of I look at this stuff and it's like, well, this isn't realistic, because when I was, let's say, in my teens or anything like that, we didn't have the parkour. The closest you got to parkour was being thrown out the freaking second story window, by your dad if you fucked up on something, kind of thing, and it depended how you landed. But Alex, if you can queue up and show so what I was wanting to go to was, it was like some of the bits where kind of you're going up a wall and then you kind of leap backwards and spin around and grab the wall behind you and then go up. I'm like, no fucking way. I mean, this is, this kind of is a suspension of belief for me, kind of thing. But then what I did is I actually spent yesterday and today watching parkour videos, and I was actually amazed at what people can get up to. Alex, if you can do the one with the marble, with the very smooth, slippery marble face, please. Cue that one and show that one, please.
Yeah, the parkour, people who do parkour are crazy, and I think it's amazing. And the fact that it's all like,
not that one, the real life one.
Was that a
what
video,
we're gonna do is,
or did you just give him a picture?
I gave him a video. Actually, if you click on that link at the very top of that, it takes you to a page, Alex. And on that page, you can click the thing. You'll have to show the.
This is the rock climbing one.
This is the rock climbing one, so we can show this. But and we were going to show that a little bit later. But it's phenomenal to see these guys sprinting up a vertical face with nothing but kind of a couple of little bits sticking in and out here and there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note too that you see actual real live people doing this, and this is not sped up in frames. But if they were to implement this in game, so that you would have the ability to parkour up a wall at breakneck speeds like this, they would say, "Oh, that's completely immersion breaking. That's completely unrealistic. That would never happen in real life." But yet it does, right? So
yeah.
Like, these speeds, the ones that we showed, are really, really, like, those are like Olympic level speeds.
Competition
if you double
speeds,
that,
yeah.
If you double that, you'll see that in a normal competition. If you go to I've seen people do them get 10 seconds to go up a wall that height. I've seen people, just normal people at a gym, do that stuff. Rock climbing gyms, but it's not too hard or unreasonable to get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the one. I don't know if he has the video of this. Alex, do you have the video of this or just the picture?
No. I got the video for you, Alex.
Okay. So what this is a guy, you can actually see the reflections off of those polished marble walls there. And the guy basically almost from a standing start bounces from side to side to side and gets up. And I think that's like a 15-foot vertical freaking wall up there, Bet Monty's stuff got moderated there. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's sending the link that
that
Alex is getting up. Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because people are crazy.
That's amazing that you can do that.
I think, there's going to ruin knees, but it's real. Like Assassin's Creed didn't just make up the stuff. There's
Yeah,
crazy people who
exactly.
do those things.
Exactly. So it's just, so now all of a sudden I've gone from kind of like being somewhat skeptical of the video that came out on Friday to like, holy fuck, this is really, really cool. And there's actually been quite a lot of thought that's gone in behind it. And it's not as absurd as, at least to somebody of my age, or maybe it's just to me personally, initially thought. I'm kind of like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. So if you can carry on with the original video, please, there, Alex.
Yeah, and I'll back away from the mic a little bit. I've been eating the mic like this, so they've been complaining that I'm a little loud and you're a little low. But and that's, you were skeptical of the video, D. I think it shows a lot of the direction they're headed and what they're doing, and like I said, how it's looking to feel smooth, and its movements are not going to be janky, and that's what we're all looking for. But that's not to say that the video itself didn't draw some heat, because it did. And some of the forums, they were talking about this is as far as we've gotten in 2 years type thing. And there's a lot of that, and I can sympathize with where they're coming from, wanting to see more. Of course, we all want to see more all the time, right? But the concern I have with us complaining about not seeing more is they're eventually just going to stop showing us shit. And this video is really cool to see in the direction they're headed with movements, and I think if you dig into it, like they're doing the wall climbing and wall running now, you can see the mechanics.
Pause right there, Alex.
Yeah, you can see it up, and that's where he falls to his. But you can see they're piling a lot of shit in here, right? And it's not just going to be WASD. It's going to be very complicated mechanics and movements, and it's going to feel good. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ren.
It's like they really took parkour, which you don't usually see in sandbox survival games. You don't usually see parkour mechanics like Assassin's Creed or Prince of Persia mechanics put into this game. But that, not only did they do that, but I think they gave us some that the games, at least when I played them, didn't usually have. So giving us sandbox survival and parkour and like open world storytelling, it's more than I was expecting, and seeing this video just really blew me away. I knew they gave us the one back at the demo way back, but like that was whatever, because they were using other people's assets. But this is stuff they did for us, and I'm like, oh, give me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, sorry. I thought you were still talking. My bad. I thought I was
just
talking over you.
abrupt
So-
end to my sentence.
So then there was kind of like the wall running thing that I saw, and I was like, no way can you run that far along a wall. And so I kind of like, I Googled, and again, it's kind of like, they call that the tic tac move, I believe is what it's called, when he leaps from the one wall to the other wall, kind of like running along the wall instead of along the ground. And I'm like, no way. And I think the Guinness Book of Records thing is, I think, like 18 feet. And if you were to guesstimate, there you go, perfect. If you guesstimate that, those are about 12-foot sections. It's actually it's doable. It can be done,
It's
and
not like it's a fantasy game, so even going a little bit beyond is not a
exactly
huge, it's a fantasy game.
Because as long as it's fun and still kind of like I'll call it plausible, right? As long as it's plausible. Because my thing is like, going back to that marble thing, was like, well, all you need to do is you can just put like a 12-foot or 18-foot marble wall up with no hand grips, and nobody's going to be able to climb up it. And then again, when I watched the parkour videos, there's a guy not in a chimney, but just a solid front-facing wall smooth wall, 12 feet tall, and he gets up over it. Like, he takes 1 or 2 steps up it and then kind of like grabs over the top, and with that momentum, kind of like almost like vaults over the top of it. And I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I was almost like tripping out watching those videos. So Snipe, if you're there and watching, what mechanics are we going to have? And I think there's a little bit later on where you're climbing up and there are some obstacles actually on the wall. But are you going to be able to create a wall around your town or your manor or your country estate that can't be parkoured up by somebody with maxed out parkour skills? Can you make, or is that for us to kind of like discover in game, if that's asking too much, or that there's the potential for it, etc.?
I mean, I think that's pretty common sense, D. You've done some research in the parkour, and you see the guys parkouring up a 12-foot wall. Like, that's phenomenal. So the simple solution is build a 20-foot wall, right? So problem solved. And that was one of the things that I was concerned with too when parkour was mentioned, that parkour would be in COE. And is it going to be realistic parkour, or is it going to be some janky Spider-Man shit? And what it looks like they're actually implementing in the game and developing as of today is realistic shit. You should be able to run along the wall a little bit, a few feet, instead of just walk forward, left, right, strafe, left, straight. You should be able to do some of those movements, and everything it seems like they're implementing is not outside the realm of possibility. So
it's the difference between Mario and like Assassin's Creed. But like, I'll even point to like Cone and Exiles. Like, the highest end of the agility build is a double jump. It's in there. It still feels natural when you play it though. So it's like a consideration. It's like, even if it's definitely, this is not a real thing, and it's not a real thing, as long as it feels natural and we're not going for platforming like a Mario game, then it probably is fine,
Yeah, and Snipe Hunter's given his reply. Thank you for that, Snipe. But basically, it boils down that if the surface is too smooth or too slippery or otherwise hostile to a climber, e.g., spiky or something, you won't be able to climb it. And I also wanted to ask you, Snipe, and thank you so much for coming in and taking time out of your day, because I know you guys are always busy in Slam. But I wanted to ask another question, and this was in response to, it was a comment either you made on the forums later or in the actual video, where you said that you were averaging things out, and were you averaging out how high a Kipik can jump, with how high a Bordweall and a Torres and a Wed, etc. can jump, and then making the parkour mechanics almost like the same? Or can like a Dras, for example, leap higher because he's a taller person than a Kipik, but can a Kipik like run along a wall, kind of like, do that wall run for further than a heavy Bordweall or a clunky Frothy, for example, kind of thing? Will there be different? Will the dungeons, as these dungeons are procedurally generated with some of these parkour kind of like puzzles in them, will they be again average so that every tribe can go through them? Or will they be that, let's say there's a slide and it's almost like, I wouldn't call it a mouse hole, but a much smaller hole that, let's say, only a Frothy or a Kipik could slide through, but a Bordweall can't?
So he mentioned something in the video, 2 things. He mentioned something in the video about how you need to have like these abilities unlocked, which again, 2 things with that. One, if you are not an adventurer and you're not like spec'd into being an adventurer, then you're going to get in these dungeons and you just can't do them because you won't have the wall run, or you won't have the this or the that or the other thing. 2, it's either being really frustrating but very rewarding. And then my other comment is, he mentioned rope swinging, which that just means Tarzan is confirmed. Somebody is going to play Tarzan in Chronicles of Illyria.
I want to expand on that, because he mentioned, I think he wrote in one of his replies that you will be able to swing on the rigging, you know, on ropes from ship to
Oh
ship
my
for
god, that's so
ship
cool.
combat.
Sinbad.
And I am like, I saw that and I'm like, fuck, I'm excited again. You know, those of you that know me know that, you know, one of my favorite games is Naval Action, which is a really beautiful but somewhat, you know, slow and grindy Age of Sail, very realistic PvP simulation. And I love the fact that in that game, you know, boarding is basically done through a UI, and it's horrible. And if you can imagine
Yeah.
now that you're actually going to be able to board by swinging on ropes and everything like that, it's going to be, I think, absolutely phenomenal in that regard. Do we have anything more to comment on, or does anybody have any other questions before we restart the video and continue on our
No,
journey?
Snipe just dropped a big bomb in chat, which confirmed a lot of our fears. You know, will a Kipik be able to scale a 10-foot wall when it's only 2 foot tall? You know, it sounds like
We should
that's
read
been
it.
taken into consideration. That's not what he said. That was my silly hillbilly
No.
humor added in there. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He says, yeah, the game is basically balanced against 5 size classes of man, spelled with 2 N's. Extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. Every mechanic limitations are based on a percentage of what you can do. For example, if you crouch, your height is from the physics engine to use half your height rather than 1 meter. This is true for jump, height, run speed, etc. The actual character's performance is based on the size, class, and the attributes and skill values, which is really exciting to hear.
It is, because I knew that, you know, there were going to be the different size doors and there was going to be the different, you know, size steps and chairs and everything like that. But to see it actually being applied to the movement mechanics, I think is great. I think it's great to see, instead of, you know, what am I trying to say?
It's right
I mean,
along
basically,
those lines of arm length and
yeah.
swing radius.
But I mean, there are so many games where it doesn't matter whether you were a halfling or whether you were an orc. You could still freaking walk along the balance beam with the same skill, right? Using WASD, and everybody had it. You know, it was
Yeah.
like I played Dungeons and Dragons online for God knows how many thousands of hours. Loved that game, and the puzzles and the solving there. But it didn't matter what race you were or what skill you had for it or whatever. Everybody could do it. It was, in fact, everybody would be pissed off at me because I'm horrible at these Mario Brothers things, and I'd be the guy falling into the acid and having to swim back and heal up, and they would all have to wait because they couldn't go further in the quest because you had to have 6 people stand on different plates at the same time, and I was the 6th person, and I would inevitably die and have to be res. But anyway, back to the Alex. Go back to the stream, buddy. If you can carry on with the video.
Look at the high quality parkouring, the really exciting parkour as he immediately falls. But no, I'm just it feels really smooth. Like I know the animations don't look like it, but what they're testing here, as far as I can tell, is really more like the connection points of the body and the wall or the hard interface that they're working. And so it's just I think this is the point where he starts talking about fatigue.
In a little while, he does.
Okay.
In a little while, he
This
does.
is where he
So
tries to
just
get back up.
You're getting a little antsy there on that fatigue thing, aren't you?
I'm sorry, it was really cool. This is the 12 otter bears. I think have wild otter bears breeding in their test bed. Just something completely not related to parkour at all. Just testing the otter bear breeding mechanics, I think, in the background. Nothing? No? Okay.
Alrighty. So this is where they had the obstacles that obviously he can't go up. So maybe like an overhanging buttress or something like that, like this, that would go all the way around, would prevent people kind of like, you know, coming up over your walls. Because my big concern was, you know, everybody's going to have parkour and there's no point in building walls kind of thing, but it looks like they've thought that out really well. So this is now where you can talk about your fatigue, because you can see his fatigue
Yeah.
creeping in there with the thing. So you take over here, Renegade.
So as far as I understood this, the green bar is your stamina, and as it goes down, it restams when you stop moving, but you see the white cracks, and that is what he called fatigue, which he said it's either, and I don't recall it exactly, it's either it regens slower or it regens less. And I think that's a very, very cool twist on the mechanic, because usually it's just you wait, your stand bar refills. Or I mean, I don't think I can even think of a game where stamina has a fatigue function in like a sandbox survival. They have like food, but that's not the same thing as fatigue. So if you're running and running and running and you stop and stam, and then run and run and run and run and stop and stam, like mechanically the human body can't just go on forever, but a lot of games just let you do that. And it forces this fatigue mechanic, really forces the player to consider, am I going to be able to make it through this dungeon in one setting, or do I maybe need to camp out in the middle of it?
Yeah. If and for me, one of the things that that Snipe Hunter had said upon that is that you'll basically, you'll have to stop, you'll have to rest and everything like that, or you can take stimulants to get rid of that fatigue. And so again, Snipe, I'll pose this question for you. That fatigue, if you get rid of it with kind of like chemical stimulants, and I do not have any personal experience of this. I want this as a disclaimer. But as everybody who's gone on a coke-fueled binge and stayed up for 2-3 days, there is a price to pay for it at the end. Will that happen in the game? Where if, replenishing your fatigue through resting is very different, at least in my mind and my opinion, from ignoring the fatigue by getting kind of like, let's call it an adrenaline boost or something,
I
Very
think he's
cool.
just implying that drug addictions are definitely a thing.
Well, drugs are going to be in games, so yeah. And so what happened there when you slid off the end of the balance beam, Snipe? Because can you explain what's happening there with the kind of like with the red and the green and the yellow kind of like axes? Why couldn't you just kind of like press D and turn? Is there a certain momentum involved in that balance mechanic, or?
God, now you're making me think of like trying to run across a balance beam, and you're like getting in my anxiety where it's like, oh God, you could fall over on something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I got too much of the X, Y, or Z axes going on to maintain the balance kind of thing.
God. Balance beams, they just like I don't mind falling, like, because I rock climb, but like balance beams, they're just like, I know it's gonna happen. So they give
But
me anxiety.
So Snipe saying he was just basically super unbalanced and pushing. Is like, what caused that unbalance? Are there kind of like a number of keys that you have to use to maintain that almost like equilibrium or balance there?
Maybe it's like as a default, you're unbalanced. So it's
Is
like
it kind
you
of like a
always have to
center of
push.
gravity thing that you have to move around with keys that keeps you balanced or not balanced? I'm just curious on
I
that.
just don't think, I think on those balance beams, you probably can't like get to a perfect balance and stop touching keys and be fine. I just think it probably has like a minor, like twitchy shiftiness, just
Yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
based on the same way humans' muscles, like you can't just stop and freeze and not move at all.
Yes, yeah.
Or like,
And
some games you're climbing, you just stop in the middle of a climb and you don't move and it doesn't use any stamina. That's always bugged me a lot too. But I think it's probably like that. He said,
yeah.
yeah,
Go
when
ahead,
you're
Renegade.
balancing, your movement keys will shift your center of balance around as you move. So you have to self-correct by moving yourself to counter any momentum by moving in the opposite direction. Which is just, I could be uncoordinated in a video game, just like in real life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Does anybody have any quick questions, by the way, for Snipe? Not trying to throw you under the bus here, Snipe, but any questions for Snipe that are parkour related as to what they had seen, and any comments, suggestions, feedback, positive or negative, as long as it's kind of like done respectfully kind of thing.
I think
And
Snipe
and
just
and
in
their
the
thoughts.
thing with us. He should just be a guest on the show.
Yeah, well, I'm milking his star power. What can I say?
Yeah, it's so I want to play with it even in the test bed just because I want to feel like the responsiveness of it. Well, that's a question I got is kind of like, are you going to tweak like the responsiveness? Because like I know like I change my sensitivity on stuff all the time because I'm a klutz and I make lots of little movements. So I'd rather make big movements to like indicate small movements. So sensitivity, I know, just and then that's also like an accessibility thing. Like somebody has like shakes.
We did have a question from viewers, asking if COE is going to refine the body and hand movements while doing parkour.
I think Snipe addressed that though in the actual video. We didn't have the audio of the video running, but he said kind of like, some of the, the animations are basically placeholders there.
Yeah.
And in fact, he showed, when he was moving left and right on a wall, there actually wasn't any animation at all. And there was one part, and we didn't stop at that part, but when I was examining and kind of like critiquing the video myself, it looked like a guy levitated 12 feet up a wall. And again, I was like, get out of here. That's just hokey. And again, when I looked into and researched the parkour, the animation, in my opinion, is just missing for that guy to be able to kind of like run, take 2 steps up the wall, grab the top ledge with his hands and kind of like smoothly pull himself up, So it's, I think it's all going to be good.
Nah, he did respond to my question. He said, yeah, we're definitely still tuning stuff, but I expect we'll explicitly add sensitivity and remapping options so folks can tune controls for their own ability. It's not even necessarily to make it easier. It's just kind of an accessibility thing because like shakes are a thing. Like, so that, and nothing's more frustrating than having a shitty mouse and you're just like, I need to make bigger movements to like do smaller movements just because I can't, or just age like limitations too. Like my kids, their movements are like this.
So what are your guys' opinions about, for example, that you're pretty much going to have parkour if you want to go adventuring? At least some of the dungeons. I'm not sure that, not all of the dungeons, maybe the algorithm won't have parkour elements in every single dungeon. But in these procedurally generated dungeons, as I was thinking about it, it was like, holy crap. I mean, again, when I've played other games, like whether it's, Elder Scrolls Online or Dungeons and Dragons Online, etc., there's kind of like, there's X amount of dungeons and everybody knows where these dungeons are. And, everybody learns how to run them and how to do them, etc., because there's a limited number of them. I mean, I'm sure the number of elements that can be introduced are limited, but again, everybody could do it. It was like, okay, we're not going to go PvP tonight. We're going to run this raid. And again, everybody just had to be able to coordinate the WASD keys to do the Mario Brothers stuff, right? And so that's not going to be the case here. You're going to need to, maybe to access certain parts of a dungeon, you're going to need to go with a group that can actually get through those parts of the dungeon, which is going to preclude a certain percentage of the population, basically everybody who doesn't have parkour, from enjoying and participating in that particular part of the content. And I actually like that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, because this, at least in my opinion, is that same risk and reward kind of thing, and making decisions as to what you will and won't be able to do, and that the decisions that you make are going to have, at least for, let's say, that lifetime of that particular avatar, they're going to have kind of like lasting consequences in the game. And this is, I don't know, for me, that's kind of like a new take on some of the stuff where normally you would have access to pretty much all of the dungeons. And I'll let you guys respond to that.
It makes me wonder if, as an alternative to parkour, if you can build solutions, because building is a thing in the game. But I know, like, sometimes we've encountered dungeons in certain sandbox survival games where we build to get across, deal with the problem. I wonder if that's going to be like, no, these are no build zones, or it's going to be like, you just can't, or you can build as an option. So it's like, well, the local count has decided that they are going to build to get to the end of the dungeon. They're going to bring a whole crew in and they're going to build something to get to the end. Because I feel like you should still be able to move into these things. They're not going to be like instanced, I don't think. Although they're underground, maybe they are instanced.
I think they are. In fact, in the dungeon walkthrough, he had Snipe was mentioning that there's going to be a little bit of a transition time, and he said, "Oh, actually, that was quicker and smoother. It'll be like going into a mine. You know, you have that little portal, which is the entrance into that instance kind of thing. You know."
How do you differentiate between player-made dungeons and like generated dungeons, though? Then, because a player-made dungeon, you should be able to build in.
Yes, yeah, you can, because again, I think Snipe on one of the images that were, I think it was in the desert where they were showing caverns with the pillars. They were showing how you can kind of like, you'll be able to create your own things there and build your own kind of like elements and stuff inside, for example, a cave or a cavern, etc.
I just wanted to back up just a little bit. You're talking about the need to have parkour on my character. My main character is not going to need to have parkour because I'm not going to be jumping from bed to bed in my harem of 9 wives. You know, I'm not going to be getting out that much. Now on my alts, however, I will have adventurer characters that, you know, I'll get out of the house a little bit with, you know, and for them, I agree, you know, they're going to have to be skilled in what they do. I just don't think our noble characters, yeah, we're not going to be maxed out in parkour, and we're not really going to miss it that much. I don't think.
I don't know. I have a different opinion on that, but that's just me.
Well,
I feel like that. Well, I
you
feel like
can swing from room to room in your castle all you want, but I'm not.
I'm living in a cave underground on a pile of shiny coins. That's what I'm going to do. So
Yeah, there was. I mean, it's funny because we talk about this in the player-made dungeons and everything, but in Life is Feudal, and I wasn't playing the MMO, but in Life is Feudal Your Own, which I had about 4,000 or 5,000 hours in, I actually made a. We designed in 3D outside of the game. We designed basically an undefeatable mine and caverns that we had put out with choke points and galleries from above from which archers could throw naphtha grenades and crossbow them down and everything. And literally 2 or 3 of us could hold off 20 people and kill them. And in fact, Bobik, the lead dev, when we showed that to him, he put in
collapsing.
He put in the collapse mechanics for mines because what we had created was so OP, and he said that's not how it's meant to be, and it was fine.
To be Minecraft.
Yeah, exactly. Because what we did is we put a house up on top, but the bed was down in the actually in the maze of tunnels underneath. And so when you respawn, you don't actually respawn in the house. You respawn on the bed, and as long as the bed was kind of like on the Z-axis, either above or below the house, that's where you would respawn. So we kind of like we do what gamers do. We kind of like we push the limits and the boundaries. Yeah, exactly, to see what's happening.
See, this is why you need to let us test Snipe so that we can break everything and could be like, get those damn plates and just look at this. Look at all the naughty things they're doing. That's not what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, so we're creeping up on the normal time for when we call it a night, which is about the 45-minute mark is when we start looking at quitting. Is there anybody that has any other questions or any observations? And Snipe, I want to sneak in a question here that is not parkour related. My apologies for doing so and taking advantage of you being here. The adventure islands that we hit, that benchmark that we hit during the Kickstarter anniversary. I'm being asked about this continuously, and again, if you can't answer or it's something for us to discover, that's fine. But the most common question I get is, will people be able to build and settle on those islands outside of kind of like the Six Kingdoms on them, or are they just kind of like adventure islands where there are like just instance things and you can't build on any of the parcels of land there?
His response is literally just emotes.
I know. We'll see if we get a little bit more, because maybe he was just put that in while I brought the topic.
We'll milk Snipe for all he's worth. And speaking of abusing people, I want to say a big thank you to Alec working behind the scenes, coming in. I was on a work trip 2 weeks ago, and Alec came in and produced the entire BBC for the first time. You guys did an awesome job with that, and he's working behind the scenes again today, so I can relax and actually enjoy the show with you guys. So that is really, really cool. I want to give him props and credit for that. I also want to give props and credit to the community for showing up tonight. We got about 20 or so people on average tonight. I looked in the official COE Discord at the community events, and no one has done anything in the last 2 weeks. The last thing that was posted was our last live stream that we were just talking about. So we're here consistently for the last 2 years. We're showing up. You may not always agree with our message, but we're here, and we're interested in what the studio is doing, and they're putting out content, which is what we've been talking about here tonight, which is damn good content, and we appreciate it.
No shiny this week though, because of Thanksgiving. No more cool videos.
That video was a shiny. I mean, that's a couple of weeks worth of shinies there to me. I liked it.
Oh, he gave us a response. Well, to be fair, they aren't done yet, but we're integrating them into worlds as new land, not as special MMO style zones. So that means they'll work the same way discovering a new continent would. The fun question is to me is, what's there when we get there? I won't answer that. Dragons.
No.
There's gonna be dragons. You think I'm crazy? You think I'm crazy? Dragons are gonna be in this game.
But you see, I think that's brilliant. I can see people fighting over the kind of like to build something there and have kind of like their own independent kind of like sovereign domain away from the stuff of the well, at least on NA East, the 5 kingdoms that we have on NA East. And again, this is just so much more that's added to the storyline kind of thing. Is it going to become a pirate nation? Are they going to unite all the islands? Will there be a confederation of the islands? I think it's great.
Islands of Angry Hermits.
It's already occupied by NPC players, and we just think that we're going to walk in and plant a fucking flag and claim it as ours. But no,
you might not want to settle there. Exactly.
I'm telling you, there's going to be dragons on these islands. Big old dragons.
Yeah.
Giant sandworms. There's going to be something there. We're not going to be able to just walk in and pitch a tent and claim it as our own. I don't believe that, but a lot of people think they will.
Yeah, maybe there'll be a deed to the land or something like that in a boss chest at the end or something. We'll see. But yeah, thank you to everybody for showing up. Thank you to all of our viewers, our regulars, those of us watching the stream for the first time, perhaps, and to Snipe Hunter for stopping in and answering our questions and clarifying some of our kind of like concerns and observations. And thank you to our 2 guests, Noslam and Renegade, and Alex for producing. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Good night, everybody.